Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Canada once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel a couple of times before. So I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last year or so, a couple of different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. They are a relatively new brewery in their local beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves, and I've enjoyed the stuff I've had from them thus far. But the beer that we're going to have a look at from them today is one of their latest releases here in Hong Kong. It's a style that I have tried from this brewery before, and one that I know they can do very well, but within that style category, this one is a sub-style that I've never tried on the channel before, if memory serves me correctly, so I'm really quite curious about that. I've heard very good things about this beer, so needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to head over to Canada. We are going to go to the province of Ontario, toward the Toronto area, but a little bit to the west of the city to a place called Milton. And that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Third Moon Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Quintuple Continuous Blood. It comes in at 13.5% ABV, and this one is a New England Quintuple IPA. So yeah, we've had many Imperial New England IPAs before, but I don't think we've ever had a Quintuple IPA. I do wonder where the border for that is, because I mean, for me, triple IPAs would be 10% plus, quadruple IPAs would be 12% plus, and so I would guess that quintuples would be like 14% plus, but you don't get too many of those in all honesty. But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this is the very first quintuple New England IPA that I've reviewed for you here, or I will review for you here on Rampant Lion Reviews, so that's pretty cool. But like I say, we know that Third Moon Brewing are a very good hazy IPA brewery. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. The Quintuple Continuous Blood from Third Moon Brewing Company in Milton, Ontario, Canada. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Third Moon Brewing before, and we will add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Canadian playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to very regularly, of course, because we do get a good selection of Canadian beer in Hong Kong, which I'm very happy about. And do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Third Moon Brewing once again. So, as I've mentioned to you already, Third Moon Brewing are based in Milton in Ontario, which is west of Toronto, and this company was founded by Steve Bibo Piloto and Chris Steininger. So Bibo is originally from Chicago in Illinois down in the US, and he moved to Montreal to study, and then he went on to Ontario shortly after graduating. But he studied communication and finance and then worked in investment and trade for a number of years. And Chris originally studied maths and computing science and comes from a background in IT and product management, so quite different backgrounds from brewing, of course. But these guys were also big beer enthusiasts, and they actually met through a mutual friend's Untappd meetup, and apparently they sat opposite each other and just nerded out on beer, and this was where their friendship was born. But they both tried to find beers from different breweries across the world, and Bibo was already an avid home brewer, and they say that they just really wanted to brew the kind of beers that they wanted to drink themselves. It started with experimentation, and then they started taking it a little bit more seriously. But the brewery was announced in the summer of 2019, and then they opened in 2020 in the middle of the COVID pandemic. But since their foundation, they've added Jim Fay and Cole Firth to the brewing team, while Melissa Steininger also came in to take care of the operations operations and maintenance side of things. She's basically the brewery engineer. But once the COVID restrictions were lifted, they opened up the tap room at the brewery, and they've been gradually upgrading the fermentation capacity and other infrastructure within the brewery over the last few years. And of course, they've built up a very good reputation for themselves, particularly when it comes to these New England hazy IPAs. But as of September 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 370 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Third Mood Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So as always, this one is a 473 milliliter can. That's the standard measure for Third Moon Brewing Company, 1 American pint. You can see plain silver top on the can there, black can in the background. But yeah, the artwork on this one is similar to what we've seen from Third Moon Brewing before. I do quite like these, the fact that they're kind of colourful and black. They're kind of like heavy metal style, I would say. That's how I would describe it. But you can see the Third Moon Brewing Company symbol there at the top of the can. And yeah, like I said to you earlier, this one comes in at 13.5% ABV, so one of the strongest IPAs that I've ever reviewed on the channel. This one is hopped with Galaxy, from what I understand. I'm not sure if it's Quintuple dry hopped. I think that's one of the other things with this name, but it uses Galaxy. So a 14% Australian hop, this one. It usually gives you a lot of, I would say, lots of kind of big passion fruit, a little bit of grapefruit, quite a lot of pineapple and mango as well, actually, in my experience. But there's a hell of a lot of oats in this one, they said, but they didn't say anything else really about the recipe with this one. But yeah, I just noticed there, I think they've got a few different versions of continuous blood, of course. I think they've got the single, double, triple, quadruple, and all this kind of things. But you can see how the deer has 5 arrows through it there, but all of the continuous blood beers basically have have this kind of deer artwork with them, and then have the arrow through the deer, the different arrows through the deer. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't think we really need to say much more about the beer itself. We can probably get it out into the glass and see what it's all about. So yeah, the Quintuple continuous blood. This should be quite good if I can get my finger under the thing. There we go. Right, so that's that. Let's get this guy out and into the glass then. I've been looking forward to this one. This is yet another beer that I bought at the wonderful Gur Beer in Chimshatchui in Kowloon here in Hong Kong. They've always got a great selection of stuff, but they do get Third Moon Brewing very, very regularly. But yeah, you can see this beer has poured very, very nicely. Yeah, I think this one looks a little bit paler to you guys on the camera. My lighting's a bit broken today. My big light up there, the bulb died, so I need to figure out what kind it is and where I can get that in Hong Kong and replace it. But yeah, to me, to the naked eye, this one's actually like a very kind of bright mango juice. You can see the beer's poured with about just under a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head there. You can see some medium sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, and then the more foamier ones the further up that you go. I think you guys are seeing the colour of this one quite nicely now. Yeah, it's got that more sort of mango juice colour to it. I always like comparing the New England IPA's appearance to different fruit juices, because that's really just what they remind me of. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. Now, the level of haze on this one, I mean, I don't find it overly different from what I've seen from like doubles and things like that, to be honest. So yeah, remember, the level of haze in a hazy IPA depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. And it can vary from brewery to brewery and even beer to beer. But yeah, this isn't the soupiest and gloopiest of New Englands that I've come across, despite being the strongest that I've reviewed in this category before. But then again, I don't remember the Third Moon Brewing beers being the soupiest and gloopiest. But yeah, one or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass on this one, and one or two kind of making their way up toward the surface of the beer. The head has just faded away to be a kind of thinner, more foamy layer now. But other than that, I don't think we can really say too much else about the appearance of this beer. Looks pretty good. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the appearance of this beer. Let's go on and actually have a little look at the aroma of this one. I'm very, very curious about this, I have to say. Oh yeah, well, I'll say, for a New England hazy, the aroma's nothing surprising, in honesty. It's you know, with it being stronger or whatever, there's nothing kind of unusual about this. One of the things with you need to remember about these styles is that, you know, you've got pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs, and then barley wines. These styles are all related to each other through their malt to hop ratio. From what I understand, and from what brewers have told me, when it comes to the triple IPAs, the quadruple IPAs, and the bigger ones like this, from what I understand, basically what they've done is they've taken the malt to hop ratio of the double IPA and just kind of put more malt in it, so it's got more alcohol and things like that. They've kind of basically done that with these beers, from what I understand. But quite a few of the very strong New England hazies use a bit of brew sugar, the same technique that the Belgian beers use to put the alcohol up. It's not all about the kind of malt base, if you like. Whereas with imperial stouts, for example, that are these kind of strengths, yeah, you do they do tend to do like double mashes and things like that. I don't think that's something they really do with New England IPAs or any kind of IPA, in all honesty. But yeah, with this one, it smells really nice, and I think, you know, it's a bit strange to say, but maybe you can tell from the smell, I think, that this one is just single mash, but they're using a bit of brew sugar, because you get a wee bit of that Skittles note out of it. But yeah, as I've said on the channel many a time, for me, with New Englands, there's kind of 6 things to think about when it comes to your New England IPA sort of malt base and yeasty side of things. So you've got your farmhousey yeasty character and also your rye-lean and grainy side of things. Those are a bit more common in the New England brewed New England IPAs, because the style started out as like a kind of farmhouse IPA, but then as it's evolved, it's more about wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. But yeah, for me, this beer, it's very barley malty and very oaty, very, very smooth. Actually, so you're going to notice that it comes across as very, very smooth in its aroma, but you've got all the things that you'd expect. So the backbone of the beer, when you sugar it up, you do get a little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. So yeah, a little bit of fresh white bready bread crust in there. Wee bit of Jacob's cream cracker. A little bit of woodiness as well, as you very often get. But yeah, quite a sort of wet and more dense, quite a bit of a wet and more kind of dense white bready character coming out of this one. But yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, I like that about this one. It's like sort of a wet but dense and slightly sweet white bready character in this one, although in fairness, it does show you a little bit of dryness. You can certainly smell a little bit of wheat on top of this one, like there's a wee touch of bitiness in the back of the nose there, but you can also smell like a denser white bready character in this one. And of course, the oaty notes really come out of this. It's got this big sort of creamy oaty character. And oats in New England IPAs are always quite interesting, because they can be a very kind of rough measure of how fresh your New England IPA is. Essentially, the creamier they are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. So yeah, there's lots of creamy fresh oats in this one. You know, they are very quick. Hops Express, as they imported, those guys are very quick at getting their their beers over here to Hong Kong. So lovely creamy oats in there. Good. There is a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing coming out of this one, but not too much actually. Wee bit of biscuit, of course, but at the back of the nose and with the yeast, and I think this is one of the things where they use the brew sugar, you can smell this kind of Skittles type aroma out of this one. And yeah, with the New England IPAs, when you get that kind of Skittles aroma, that should tell you, or usually it tells you, yeah, there's a wee bit of brew sugar in here, but the yeasty notes at the back of the nose, they are, you know, they're a mix of like white and brown bread, I would say. So yeah, a little bit of a mix of like white and brown bread, I would say. But yeah, all in all, the the aroma, the malty yeasty side of this one, it does, the more that you smell of it, the more it leans toward the oats. The oats kind of almost thicken up in the aroma, and it does get a little bit more where there's originally, you get a bit more of that butterscotchy, butter candy type character out of it. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, I like that with this one. I don't know if there's too much else to say about the malty and yeasty side of things in this beer. So let's go on to the hoppy side then. So as I've mentioned in many reviews before, there are three types of hoppings to think about when it comes to IPAs. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil usually. That gives you most of your bitterness and a deep and dank flavour and aroma. And then you've got your late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil usually. Sometimes a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and it's going to give you a very bright green component. And then you have the dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma, no bitterness, and again a very bright green component that will come out of there. But yeah, all in all, the New England IPAs tend to use, for the most part, late addition and dry hopping, whereas West Coast IPAs use all three, which is why they're deeper, danker and more bitter, and the New England IPAs are a little bit more kind of softer and juicy almost. And yeah, late addition and dry hopping is going on quite a lot in this one. You can tell that just because of how bright the green component is. So on that green component, teeny tiny little bit of earthiness, but really it leans toward, you've got a very bright floral aromaticity out of this one. So yeah, lovely big bright floral aromaticity, nice little bit of grassy zestiness in there. Yeah, so big like floral aromaticity in this one, nice little bit of bright grassy zestiness in there. And yeah, that's the way. Yeah, that really is how it goes to get, how it comes out. Yeah, big. The floral notes are very kind of bright, and the grassiness is really zesty as well. But the floral notes, I would say, dominate, in all honesty. But yeah, that's that. The fruity side of things, if you know Galaxy, you know, this makes sense. There's like a little bit of that sharper peach in there. For me, lots of big juicy mango. You can smell the softer kind of passion fruit underneath it as well. And then, yeah, I'm getting that little bit of pineapple too. I find Galaxy always has a bit of pineapple. Yeah, I think peaches, juicy mango, apricots underneath, and yeah, lots of pineapple for me. Really interesting, lovely smelling beer, I have to say. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. That's always half the experience, in my opinion. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So this is the Quintuple Continuous Blood, a 13.5% Quintuple New England Hazy IPA from Third Moon Brewing Company in Milton, Ontario, over in Canada. Let's get stuck into this. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh, that's nice. But I tell you something, you know, you can taste the booziness with this, for sure. This is most definitely like a sipper. Not one or two wee tiny bits of sediment just came out there. But yeah, this is definitely a sipper. It's kind of interesting trying a New England that's this strong as well, because I remember when I first encountered these beers with the likes of Stigbergets and some of the other New England breweries in Sweden, I always thought that, you know, I always had that feeling that, yeah, when you go above 8% with these beers. They struggle to cover their alcohol in the same way that the West Coast IPAs could, with the kind of caramelly sweetness. So yeah, you often had to add a slightly sweeter malt to these to get them higher. But now, yeah, we're talking about 13 and 14% New England hazies. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, this is the first one in a while where that I've had where the booze, you can taste the booze, just a little bit of the nip of the booze, in honesty. So I wonder, yeah, maybe the quintuple IPA is a little bit, is maybe just a step too far. I've had a couple of quadruple IPAs and they've turned out quite nicely, but yeah, you do get a wee nip of the booziness just on the first impression. Now let's have another wee sip of it and see what we think. Yeah, there's a little bit of it. There is a wee bit of it. You can taste it on the tongue there. But yeah, all in all though, it is a very nice beer and it's certainly up there with the standards that I would expect of Third Moon Brewing. Finding into the aftertaste, there's a wee bit of like a graininess to this one. And yeah, it is, as I say, it is really nice and enjoyable, but yeah, it's got a wee bit of graininess and a wee bit of bite from the alcohol, I would say. So yeah, I do like how that pieces together in this one. So yeah. It's good stuff. Yeah, so let's let's break this down and describe it more in depth for you, as we always do. It has got a bit more of a kind of florally dankness to it, which is interesting. But yeah, you can tell, like they say in their description, it's all about the oats. Middle third of your palate then. The backbone of this beer, you get that big bready, that sort of big bready, bread crusty backbone there. So kind of a more brown bready note, but I think a bit of the bite from the booziness is almost giving it an impression of like a slightly toasty or almost even charred bread crust, which is interesting. But yeah, as you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you've got a wee bit of woodiness in there. Then above that, you've got a wee bit of a Jacob's cream crackery type character. So yeah, the way it goes together in that sense is kind of interesting. So you do have a wee bit of that bite to the backbone with this beer. Yeah. Yeah. So for me, the on top of that kind of crackery layer, you start to get the bread. So the bready note for me, there's maybe a very slight layer like brown bread in there, so like a sweet wholemeal brown bread. Then above that, you've got a more white bready character for sure. So yeah, there's that little bit of white bread in there. So yeah, nice little bit of, got that wholemeal brown bready character in there. Then you've got that more dense white bready note out of it. And the white bread is quite nice. I think the white bread actually gets a bit sweeter into the aftertaste. So you've got that barley malt white bread in there, and then above that you start to get the above that you start to get the more dense wheaty white bread, and then further back on that middle third of your palate, of course, you start to get the bitiness out of that. So yeah, that's there. Then above that, it's all about the oaty layer. So down the middle line of your palate, you can feel that big, thick, creamy oaty layer. And as you move out toward the edges of that, as you move out toward the edges of that, you have a little bit more of a kind of dryness. Yeah, you've got a little bit more of a kind of dryness to the oats as well. So that's quite interesting too. So yeah, the oaty dryness in there. It's quite small because this beer is obviously quite fresh. But yeah, you've got that nice little bit of that bit of creaminess down the middle of the palate, and then as you go further out toward the edges, it shows you that bit more of a dryness. But on top of the oaty layer, you can feel a little bit of that skittle sweetness in there, and obviously that's given like a little bit of it's giving you that little just skittle flavours there, and that's obviously from the brew sugar. But if you go to the dead centre of your palate, you start to get that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch out of this one. But I will say you do have a little bit of almost burn in this beer from the alcohol. Like you can taste that in the middle of your palate. There's just this little bit of almost that little nip of alcohol. You can feel that in the middle of your palate with this beer. And I think this is kind of what I used to talk about with the New England hazies, and they need like a little bit, if you're going to do one this strength, you need a little bit of like carapils or caramel, or it's just something a bit sweeter to cover that little boozy nip, because you can feel that in this one. So this beer, in a sense, because it has that little alcohol nip, for me, it's not quite as perfected as the other ones that I've had from this brewery before. I've got a triple IPA from these guys in the fridge, which will be the next one I review from these guys, and I'm sure that one won't have this little nip. I think they just need to put a little bit more of a caramel or something like that in this one to kind of perfect it, if you like, because it just, that little alcohol nip is just there, and that's kind of, it's just taken away the overall feel of the beer almost. It does dominate a little bit. So yeah, but around that Werther's Original bit, you can feel the wee bit of like McVitie's digestive biscuity type character coming out of the beer. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is quite nice. So yeah, I do like how that I do really like how that goes together. But yeah, this beer, just a slightly sweet, a bit of caramel or something would, I think, do this beer a lot of good. But yeah, we've covered the middle third of the palate then. So let's go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, and generally sweeter flavours will come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that little bit of bready build up in there, the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, then the more bitey, wheaty thing at the very top of it. The backbone of the back third of your palate, you've got the bread crust in there, which is quite dry, a bit of cracker, the brown bready notes in there, which are a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy, of course, a wee bit more grainy too. And above that, you've got the white bready layer in there, which again is a little bit lighter, taller, grainy, and more airy. And then above that, you've got some more, above that, you've got a little bit of, I would say, the wheaty character in there, which is a little bit more kind of bitey, I would say. So yeah, you've got that little bit of bitey wheaty character in there, which is even more bitey. And then above all of that, you've got the yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a wee look at the yeastiness in this one. So the yeasty side of this beer, for me, it's kind of like brown bready. Like at its core, it's got like a very kind of sweet brown bread. Then surrounding it, it's more of a kind of grainy, it's more of a kind of grainy brown bread, I would say, and that does actually get quite dry into the aftertaste. And then around the very edge of that, you have the bread, like this kind of bread crusty type character. So that's, it's really interesting how that kind of pieces together with this one. So the grainy bread crusty character that comes out of this is quite interesting. But the yeasty character in this one, that lingers into the aftertaste, and again, that it gives the beer just a little touch of that farmhousey note. But back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So for me, the hoppy character, back corners of the palate, you do get a little bit of earthiness out of this one, which I'm a wee bit surprised at, because normally you wouldn't get that with Galaxy. I don't know if that's something from the yeast or the booziness of the beer or what. But yeah, as you move further forward, there is maybe a little bit of like piney resin underneath this one. It could have a little bit of early edition hopping as well, but it almost has a wee bit of that Columbus-like spice to it as well. So you can feel the piney resins in there, then you get that nice floral aromatic spice, and then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So yeah, really nice. Really nice little bit of like grassy, zesty kind of character coming out of this one as well. So yeah, I like that about this beer for sure. So yeah, the way that it goes together in that, the way that goes together in this one, I think is it's quite nice. The green component is good, a little bit of zesty character there. But let's focus on the front third of your palate then, just to round off. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get that little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the brown bread in the base, the white bread kind of on top of that, and then you get a wee bit more of the wheaty bitiness in there. But yeah, the backbone of the front third of your palate, you get the brown bready bread crust forming the base, a little bit of the cracker, brown bread, the white bread, the wheaty notes in there, and maybe just a little touch of the smoother oats. And then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that fruity estery side of things. So yeah, as we know, this beer is hopped with Galaxy. So at the back of that front third of your palate and the oily bubble, you're getting a wee touch of the grapefruit. That you do get a little bit of grapefruit in this one, and again, it kind of plays into that wee bit of alcohol nip that this beer has. Although, for me, when you move further forward from that, you do get a nice little bit of you get a nice little bit of like peachy sharpness above that. Then you have the so you've got the grapefruit kind of peachy notes, then a really nice so grapefruit, peach. Underneath that you get the kind of juicy mango and a wee bit of the softer passion fruit, and as you move further forward, it starts to show you like some really soft kind of apricot-y flavours, and then more of a pineapple-y note, and those really soft flavours are the things that kind of push further forward on that front third of your palate. I don't know if there's really anything else to say about the fruity side of the beer, but yeah, I do like it. I like how that kind of pieces together in this one. So yeah, I think that's all we need to say about that. So on the on that, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour. So let's just round off with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. For me, this beer, I would say it's kind of mid-range full-bodied. Yeah, mid-range full-bodied. The carbonation on this one is very, very smooth. It's got this really oily yet kind of creamy, silky sort of mouthfeel. I think that's a good way to describe it. The IBU count in this one, I think this one's got to be about 50 or 60 IBUs. I think there is a wee bit more bitterness to this one, and of course, the little bit of alcohol nip that this beer has kind of adds bitterness to the beer too. But the malt base, like we said, it's got a bit of graininess underneath, smoothness in the middle, and that creamy sweetness on top with a bit of alcohol nip to it. It gets sweeter into the aftertaste. Then you've got that really nice juicy kind of fruity character coming out of this beer. Now again, I really like how that I do really like how that pieces together, so it gets a big thumbs up from me in that particular regard. But it's a really interesting beer, this one. Lovely soft juicy fruity notes to it. Like I say, I think the one flaw that this beer has is it needs a bit of like caramel or something just to sweeten up the malt base a little bit and cover that bit of alcohol nip that it has. So yeah, that's the one little imperfection it has, but we've not seen that in a Third Moon beer before, and most of them that we've had have been kind of stronger. So yeah, maybe this one we just need to revisit the recipe a little bit and sweeten it up a little bit to cover the booze. But other than that, really solid beer, and certainly up with the standard that I've had from Third Moon Brewing Company before. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this one was the Quintuple Continuous Blood, a 13.5% New England Quintuple IPA from Third Moon Brewing Company in Milton, near Toronto in Ontario over in Canada. Really interesting beer to try. The strongest IPA I think I've reviewed on the channel thus far, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, this is a brewery you do need to check out if you're interested in Canadian beer. I can feel the booze going to my head with this one. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Third Moon Brewing Company as well. And do let me know what your favourite version of Continuous Blood is. And we'll see if we can review the other versions at some point in the future too. But until the next time, sláinte, skål, cheers, and see you in the next one. Ciao just now.